So you'll understand how the whole argument began. I guess I better start with a phone call I got from Clara. We've been married 22 years, and I've learned it takes a powerful lot of argument to make her change her mind. The call came when we were knocking off for the day on a job I was bossing over on Maple Street. She was lucky to catch me so late. Come straight on home after work, Clara says. How come, I asked. And then she tells me that our neighbor's kid, young Joey Thompson, was leaving that night to go back to the Navy. Wanted to come over and say goodbye to us before he left. Sure, I said, sure. And I told her I was leaving right then. I just about missed the kid. When I got home, he was already saying goodbye to Clara. He looked pretty sharp in his uniform, but I could see he had plenty of steam up. Seems he was overdue at the airport. So I hardly had time to wish him luck. And no time at all to warn him about hungry blondes. Yet the kid was on his way. And a long, tough way it might be, too. We had a sort of quiet meal that night. Talked about Joey and how we'd seen him grow up. Then all of a sudden, Clara remembered to show me the present Joey gave us.
Look, a little aeroplane. Just like the one he's going to fly in, he said. It's to remember him by, sort of a souvenir, he said.
Isn't that nice of the kid?
Yeah.
Hey, there's one of those fast Navy jet planes.
Really?
Yeah, they can really go to 500-600 miles an hour. Sure wish I was a kid again.
Oh, you do you? Well, just the same, I'm very glad you don't have to fly in one of those things.
You and me both. You know, it takes a kid with fast reactions to handle a jet. But that don't mean us older fellows can't be a lot of help.
Now, don't you go getting any ideas.
No, I'm serious. Now, these jet planes can't stay up forever. They gotta come down. And when they do, they come fast and hard. It takes a lot of runway to handle them. They beat an ordinary runway to pieces.
Well, George, what's that got to do with you?
Here, let me show you. Now here's an airfield the Navy's building, like when I was with the Seabees. Now, the kids fly the planes, but it takes us older, more experienced men to know how to build a big airstrip. Supervising them red-hot Seabees is no job for kids either. Not that there's anything wrong with the kids, it's just they need older men to show them how things are done.
Well, thank heavens, we won't be needing many airfields. Do you know, I heard the other day that we have planes that can easily fly halfway around the world without ever coming down.
And not these little babies. The more fields they got, the oftener and the harder they can hit. They need plenty of gas, too, and that means fuel tanks. Here. The Seabees built plenty of them, mostly 10,000-barrel tanks. You can take it from me, no inexperienced kid's gonna wreck the fuel tank all by themselves. Now, why do you suppose the Seabees recruited all those old hands out of the oil fields during the war?
I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because those guys, 40 and 50 years old, knew their stuff. And they passed it on to the youngsters. You think kids can learn construction out of a book?
Well, maybe they can and maybe they can't. They do have to go to training camps, don't they? Oh, George, to hear you talk, anybody would think it'd be better if the young men just stayed at home.
Oh, you got me wrong. The young boys are all right. They can do lots of things better than us older men.
Then what are you getting so excited about?
I'm not getting excited. I'm just trying to tell you. The kids can't do it all alone. Now, here, let me explain. When us Seabees get a pier building job, the Civil Engineer Corps design it, but a set of plans ain't a pier. It takes savvy and plenty of it. Now, we built that breakwater out on Guam during the war. That was just plain hard work. Now, some of the kids figured they're missing all the excitement. They'd see the Marines and the Army going through on their way to the fighting, and kids in our outfit got pretty restless. Well, the older boys helped settle them down. Helped them see what they were doing was all part of winning the war and getting home again. I even quieted a few of them down myself.
I'm sure they never could have built the pier without you.
What's the matter, honey? You peeved about something?
Oh, no, nothing at all.
Well, like I was saying, most of the Seabees' work is behind the actual fighting, but whether we win the fight depends on how fast we build. Now take this warehouse, for instance. If full-scale war comes, and we go on the offensive, we'll have to build up our strength at a particular point at some advanced base. And the faster we build, the better. It'll take all the shortcuts in the book. And who knows the shortcuts? The guys with experience. Yep, if we get into a real shooting war, the kids will have to carry the main load. But they'll need help from those old duffers who've been around for a while.
George, you're not being serious about wanting to help these kids, as you call them.
They don't need me now. They're doing all right.
They certainly are. And quite frankly, I don't think we'd make out very well on your old chief petty officer's salary.
I said they don't need me now. But in case this country's attacked, if we get into an all-out war...
Now, don't be ridiculous, George. I don't intend to sit quietly by while you go off and play soldier again. Lord knows you're well over the draft age. Quite frankly, we simply cannot afford it.
You mean if this country's attacked...
I mean if there's another war, let somebody else do the fighting this time. You've already fought your war. And if the older men are needed in the Seabees, all right. Let the old bachelors go in this time, or somebody like Dorothy McGuire's husband.
Now, let me get this straight. You mean come another war, I ought to just close my eyes and pretend they don't need me?
That's exactly what I mean. What on earth are you doing?
That was an advanced base. If we're so selfish and so careful of our own hides, we'd rather stay home and make a buck than defend ourselves. Then we won't need any advanced bases. We're not worth defending. Sure, we've got a comfortable life. I'm making good money. We've got a nice home. I like those things too. And nobody wants to stay out of another war any more than I do. But if we can't stay out of it, if war is forced on us, then I'll be in where I can do the most good. And you might as well make up your mind to it.
I suppose so. But you're not pulling the wool over my eyes. If you go in, it's because you want to go in, not because they need you.
Oh, now, Clara.
Oh.
The Maple Street job kept me pretty busy the next day. But a half a dozen times I found myself remembering that argument with Clara. It sort of stuck in my mind and bothered me. I even began to wonder if maybe she wasn't right. But doggone it, I knew otherwise. She just didn't understand. On the way home, I stopped at a filling station to get gas and pick up some road maps for the vacation we were planning. An idea sort of sneaked up on me. If Clara was too stubborn to believe me, maybe she'd believe somebody else. Maybe the Seabees could send me some figures or something I could use for proof. So what? The idea only cost me a 3-cent stamp. Later, I found out that my letter made quite a commotion at the Seabees headquarters in Washington. It seems that one of the big shots happened to get a look at it. What it said helped him prove a point he was trying to make to the Seabee admiral. And doggone it, the admiral himself didn't get interested. They told me he wanted to get a first-hand look at a case like mine and Clara's. Not knowing all this at the time, you could imagine how surprised we were when one of those official Navy letters came to the house. I was just starting to open it when I saw it was addressed to Mrs. George Snyder. Hey, this is for you.
For me?
That's what it says. Read it out loud.
It's from an admiral.
Huh? Go on, read it.
Dear Mrs. Snyder, your husband has written us that you and he are planning to visit Washington on your forthcoming vacation. I should be most pleased if you could find it convenient to come to the Bureau of Yards and Docks for a visit. I would like very much to have a talk with both of you. What's this all about? What did you write him, for heaven's sake?
Well, I didn't write him. I just wrote the Seabees in Washington for some pamphlets and stuff. I said I could pick him up when we came through Washington.
But this is from an admiral. And he says he would be most pleased if I could find it convenient to visit him. How do you like that? An admiral in Washington.
I'll bet Clara showed that letter to half the people in the neighborhood by the time we started on our trip. but she hadn't changed her mind about me and the Seabees. And I figured the smart thing to do was to lay off the whole subject. We got to Washington about 10 the next morning. And first thing we did was drive over to the Seabee headquarters. I was sort of nervous, of course. Clara was pretty impressed by all the gold braid and such, but Clara's got a mind of her own. And for all I knew, she might lay back her ears and give the Admiral a hard time. It all would depend on what kind of a story he could tell her. But me, well, I was beginning to sweat plenty.
First, I want to thank you for having taken the time and the trouble to come here.
Well, that's quite all right, sir. We were going through Washington anyway.
Yes, I know. That's why I asked for the opportunity to get into this family argument of yours. I knew it wouldn't take much of your time, and it would help me to get a clearer picture of a very important problem.
I'm happy to oblige.
I understand, Mrs. Snyder, that you're very much opposed to your husband volunteering for service in the event of another full-scale war.
I certainly am, sir. I say he's fought one war. Let somebody else do it the next time.
I've tried to explain to her that...
Yes, I know you have, but maybe I can help. Maybe she doesn't believe everything you tell her.
Could be.
What is it that you don't believe?
Well, sir, my husband's always talking how important the older fellows are. Why, to hear him go on, you'd think we might lose a whole war without him. Now, I say let the younger fellows fight the next time.
Well, in the event of another full-scale war, the young men will be fighting it. Never worry about that. But they can't do it alone. They've got to have the leadership and the experience of older men like your husband. I know that because I took the trouble to look up his Navy record. And it's a record you can both be very proud of.
Yes, I know.
Without experience such as his, the Seabees won't have the speed and the know-how that they've got to have, that the country's got to have from them.
But why pick on my husband?
It isn't a matter of picking on an individual man. It's a matter of defeating the communists if they should force us into a war. If bombs start falling, Americans will want to be where they can do the most good. And your husband, with his years of construction experience, couldn't find a spot that fits him better than with the Seabees. For example, take airfield construction. Now, young men can fly these new jet airplanes, but when it comes to the construction of an airstrip nearly 2 miles long, that presents another problem. That requires men with know-how and years of experience. And those are some of the reasons, Mrs. Snyder, why older men are important.
I understand, sir. And what you say does make sense. But no one's going to sell me on the idea of wanting to lose George. Oh, that's my heart talking now, sir. But if, as you say, he is needed in a war, then I guess I can do what I did before and wait until he comes home again.
And that's how the argument ended. But Clara still got a mind of her own, including some very strong opinions. This morning at breakfast, she was telling me that if I was a man instead of a mouse, I'd spend my noon hour selling the Seabees to older guys like me. Can you tie that?